What is up, guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we have a breakdown covering my top 5 favorite stocks for the rest of 2025. Obviously, I'm very bullish on all these stocks that will be mentioned today, and I do think that all these stocks will outpace the S&P 500 over the next year. Now, I do want to note that if we are to see a larger market correction than what has already happened, obviously these stocks are going to follow the S&P. That doesn't mean that anything has changed with the business, or that doesn't mean that any of these targets are changed. It just means that these targets are pushed back because the market has chosen to sell off. So, in combat to that, I do think that it is a good idea to dollar cost average into these stocks, and is not a good idea to push all your chips into one stock and maybe let it sit because there could be more downside to come. That's why I think dollar cost averaging in is the best option, where you can go ahead and maybe buy 10 shares at $50, 10 shares at $40, and 10 shares at 35. So once the price does return to 50, you've brought your average down and you have even more shares. So you can go ahead and profit a little bit sooner, and you'll have more shares to actually make that profit from. So I do think that dollar cost averaging is going to be the best advice I could give you guys with this video. I do think that all of these stocks are strong companies. They show good financials, and I do think that the chart looks amazing for all 5 of these stocks. So let's go ahead and jump right in. And just a really quick word before we do get into this video, I do want to let you guys know that we have our free Discord linked in the description down below. You guys can join over 500 plus profitable traders, and we have over $500,000 in premium profits year to date. Now we're looking to target around $3 to $5 million, so make sure you guys do join up and do not miss out on that opportunity. Jumping into the video here, we're going to get it hot, started with number 5 here, which is ASTS. I do think that ASTS is holding up very well with the recent market correction. Now, we did see earnings come out and they were pretty good, and we saw a 20% bounce come out of that. So I am pretty happy to see that ASTS is holding up, and I do own around 150 shares of ASTS, and I continue to contribute $10 every single day into this stock. So I do think that it is a little bit more important right now with this market correction to zoom out a little bit more than we are right now. So I'm going to go from the daily to the weekly here. And you can see really we are still breaking out of this really nice wedge. We bounced off of our EMA as well, and it looks like we are seeing some more upside to come. So I do think that our next target is going to be that wave 3 move all the way up to $55. And then from there, we should drop down back into this range for the fourth wave move, which will either bring us back down to around $46.62 or around $41.03. Now, it is very possible that we do go back and test all-time highs, and I would really love to see that. I think that would be even better than a fourth wave pullback, and I do think that would maybe ignite us higher, even if the business is to come out with maybe better earnings or something with the company has, expanded or grown. So I do think that our last target here is going to be for 78.12, and I do think that will be our fifth wave extension. Now, I do want to note that there is room to move up to around 95.83, but I do think that would have to take a little bit more expansion within the business. So maybe by the time we do get to that wave 5, we could probably push higher to around 95.83 at the highs. But for now, I do want to target around 55.48, and I do think that that comes by the end of summer. If we are to see a larger market sell-off, I still think that we could see some more downside, possibly taking us to around $17.49. But looking at it from a positional standpoint, maybe taking a long right here, putting your stop loss below liquidity, and then taking your highs all the way up to around that $78 range. That is still a pretty good risk to reward ratio of 3.3. So I really do like this trade, and I really don't see it going all the way down to around $17. But if we are to see that, I will be scooping up an insane amount of shares. So that was all from ASTS. Let's go ahead and jump into our next stock here. Jumping into our fourth stock here, we're going to have GRRR. And as you guys can see, GRRR is in this really beautiful channel. We actually made a really nice trade on GRRR coming last month, where we did go ahead and enter around 1350. And we ran this all the way up to around 44.15 in only a 5-week span. And that was about a 230% gain for a lot of our premium members. But I do think that there is some more on the table with GRRR. I still do own around 100 shares, even though I did sell out of about 75% of my position. I do think that if we are to bounce off this 50-day EMA, we can see some more upside, possibly taking us up to around 47.46 and 45.25, where I have my first profit-taking targets. I might go ahead and take an entry off this 50-day EMA if the market is looking like it's an area where we can bounce, and I would like to see around that $47 target be hit by late summer. And I do think that there is a way where we can extend up 157% all the way up to around 69.37 by the end of this year. And I do think that if this company does continue to grow, as we have seen with stuff like Palantir, as this is another one of those defense stocks, I do think that we can see highs at around 91.37, but I do think that would take a little bit longer to come, maybe something by early 2027 to maybe summer of 2027. But you never know, maybe this company could come out next earnings, post something really crazy, and we could go ahead and fly all the way up there by something like the end of this year. So it is definitely worth noting. Obviously, I do think that 47.46 is a safe first target, and I do think that will be obtained this year. And then I do think our first, big target here is going to be 69.37 if you guys are a long-term holder looking to squeeze the profit out of this. So I would suggest something like selling maybe 25, 40, 50% of your shares right here, and then maybe selling off another 25, 30, 40% shares there if that is something that you guys can afford to do. So I do think that GRRR is definitely a buy right now. And I do think that we can run it all the way up around 45% to 47, 46, and all the way up around 160%, all the way up to around $70. Jumping into our third stock on today's video, we are going to have Rocket Lab. Now, Rocket Lab is looking very attractive to me after running up around 1100% last year. We have seen this thing retrace in a healthy manner back to not only its golden zone, but these EMAs. So I do think if we can see a bounce coming out of this wave 2 retracement sitting at around 15.25 at lows, I do think that we can see a larger impulse move up to around $60 for our third wave extension. Obviously, that is going to be a pretty nice bit of profit, so I'll go ahead and break that down in a second. But I do think after that, we can go ahead and drop down for our fourth wave move for lows at around 37.35 and a high of around 42.45. From there, I do think that we will add some more shares and get up to highs at around $77.46. Now, I am banking a little bit on space being one of the next big things, but it kind of just seems like that's the way it's going to work out. Now, not only is this company working to turn profitable, but they are doing it in a good, slow fashion. So as this thing does continue to grow, I'm going to continue to add shares. And I do think that adding anywhere under prior all-time highs is really going to be beneficial, as we can see that just our third wave extension alone is going to be an insane 300% move, and moving all the way up to our fifth wave extension, that'd be about 412% from prices today. So I do think that this company can obviously see a lot more upside, but if the market is to continue to sell off, I do think that there is some more downside that is possible, probably taking us down to around 1402 at the lows at that 200 SMA. From there, I would be buying heavy because this stock is going to rally the next time we see anything close to a bull market. So that was all from Rocket Lab. Let's go ahead and jump into stock number 2. Barely missing out on our top stock for 2025, we're going to have Robinhood Markets. Now, Robinhood is looking very intriguing right now, being at around a 40% discount from prior highs of around $67, currently sitting at $36.78. I do think that this is a great buy for Robinhood right now, and I do have around 200 shares, and I'm constantly adding more to that. I do think that if we can get a bounce out of this golden zone and off our 200 EMA and 200 SMA, we can return to prior highs at around $67 and then extend up to around $87 being at all-time highs. Maybe we do get a little bit of resistance right there, but I do think that inevitably we will push even higher, seeing highs at around $126 to around 132. Now, our move out of the cup and handle is going to take us up to 126, and our 168 extension is going to be at 120. So I do think that any area within here is probably going to be our short-term top. Wherever we do end up by then, I do think that we will see some good resistance, but this is my target nonetheless, and that is around 251% from where we are today. So I do think that Robinhood is probably one of the better companies on this list, and I do think that what they have done with their marketing and crypto recently could really lead them much higher, and I do think that this could come by the end of this year. I do think that this company does have some catching up to do, and if Bitcoin is to run, Robinhood will follow. So I do think that it is realistic that we could possibly see 251%. Obviously, we couldn't go into a bear market or a crash or a correction or whatever you want to call it. Obviously, the markets would most likely have to stay bullish, but that is what I am targeting, and I honestly believe that we can get there. So let's go ahead and jump into our final stock of the video, being the number one stock that I would recommend for 2025. Coming in at number one here for our top 5 stocks of 2025, we're going to have Oscar Health. Now, as you guys can see, we are in this beautiful cup and handle with Oscar, and I do think that we are wedging down into this handle, which could ignite a strong move all the way up to around $45 for that Wave 3 extension. But really what we're focusing on right now is going to be this 200 SMA at $16.93. Once we can go ahead and flip this to support, I do think that we will fill that fair value gap at $20, moving higher to around $23.44, and then on from that to all-time highs at around $37, seeing our final price target be up around $45.19 for that third wave extension. And I do think from there, we'll most likely drop back for our fourth wave move, either taking us back to around all-time highs, probably retesting prior all-time highs, or down to around $32.40, or possibly down all the way to around $28.46. But obviously, that would be a great area to add more of this stock. So I do think that something like that could happen, and maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I do think somewhere in this area we will bounce for our fourth wave move. And I think from there we could take it all the way up to around $70. Now, this is something that would probably come by the middle of 2026 to the late ends of 2026, possibly early 2027. But I do think that this is something that this company is going to start taking off. Everybody that's been eyeing it on Twitter is really going to jump in heavy. And with recent buys from stuff like Michael Burry and Kushner, I do think that people are just waiting for a little bit of, ignition before jumping into this move. But I do think that once we do flip that 200 SMA to support, this thing is really going to get rocking and it is going to jump quick. I think people are going to be piling into this thing past $40, much like we saw with HIMS, taking it up all the way to around $70. This company is looking like a great setup. So I do think all the way up at around $70, that is around a 366% move. But even to our third wave move, it would be 203% from prices today. And a lot of our premium members have averages down in the 13s and the 12. So I do think that Oscar Health is the best stock that you guys could possibly be eyeing for 2025. And a lot of those reasons are based off not only the chart, but with their financials growing at 55% year over year revenue growth and 35% year over year net income. This is obviously a company that is looking to turn profitable. And I think that they are really going to benefit from what is going on in the market once that is recovered. So that is why Oscar Health is my top stock pick for 2025. All right, guys, and that is going to go ahead and wrap it up for me. That was my top 5 stock picks for 2025. Make sure you guys do leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of this video or maybe one of the individual stocks that we talked about. And make sure you guys do like and subscribe as always, as we are on the way to 1,000 subscribers. But that is going to be it for me, guys, and I will see you guys tomorrow.